Everybody, my name's Joe, and I'm a real alcoholic,
Hey, Joe.
and I've done the work as it's laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm living in the latter steps. I made all my amends that I can make, and I am practicing 10, 11, and 12 to the best of my willingness. And I say that because it really is always about my willingness, and a bit apprehensive today. I feel a little jittery, I don't know what that's all about, but that's good because it keeps me sort of alert and kind of connected to the truth, right? So, I did this work a lot of years ago, 19 actually to be exact. It's going on 20, and I haven't been sober for that many years. I'm going on 5 years. It's 4 years back, June 25th. I've done this work. I relapsed a few times. I had to do the work over again, and it really is about getting to the place of being completely humble and accepting this disease for what it really is. And that is a process. And for me, it was a tedious process. It tells us that for some of us, it was a tedious process, right? And why is that? And it's because it's about the humility that's necessary in order to actually give yourself completely to this work and have that psychic change they talk about, right? And that's not an easy process for an alcoholic. For us, we have to be really badly beaten to get to that place where we accept this spiritual sort of solution, to that restless, irritable, and discontented state of mind and body. And for me, it was really, about the difficulty with, and I found this out certainly in my fourth step, which is the effects. I found those to be extremely helpful, and if people aren't there yet, don't worry about it. But I always like to go back because getting to the actual step that I'm on, reviewing the steps that I did up to that point really helped me to sort of cement, the import of what this work is about. And, the first part was really sort of accepting the fact that I have, this chronic and progressive disease, alcoholism, right? Which means that, I crossed the line at some point for whatever reason, right? That once I put a drink or a drug in my body, I am no longer in control. That chemical is in control. I have to accept that at the core of my being, right? And even if I do that, then why do I keep going back to it? It's because I have this peculiar mental twist, which I believe is one of the hallmark signs of real alcoholism. The reason why this book was written, for the real alcoholic, the person who's lost the choice in drink, right? So, clearly, I have to accept that, but then I have to, do the work necessary to continue to grow in humility, and there's a difference between being humbled and being humiliated, right? To be humiliated, I've done that to myself on many occasions through my active disease of addiction. But to be humble is to accept myself, flaws and all, and to be willing to grow, in a way that, I'm better compared to me. The guy that initially took me through this work just said, Joe, you're just trying to get better compared to you. And you're better today than you were then, and you'll be better tomorrow than you are today. And I'm only going to be better given the amount of work that I'm willing to put into it, right? So I get to that place, I accept that I'm a real alcoholic. I begin to think that I can't do this on my own, so I have to develop a relationship with a power greater than myself. How do I do that? Well, I have to understand that I'm not it, right? And that left to my own devices, I'm going to screw everything up. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that. So, I get to this fourth and fifth step, which I do this moral inventory. So I look at those flaws in my character through my resentments, my fears, and my sex conduct, right? And I understand that, for me, it really is that underlying fear that sort of is the catalyst to all my character flaws. When I'm feeling, afraid, I start kicking up. I want to do something. I want to manipulate a situation. I want to be comfortable. That really is the bottom line. That's why I took drugs and I drank. I wanted to be comfortable, right? And then I crossed the line and we know where that takes us. So, I get to that place and, I accept that, I'm flawed. I'm not perfect. And also I take 6 and 7 and I look at those basic defects and I ask for them to be removed. So I become willing and I become humble. It's really where they begin to talk about humility, is sort of an essential part of this work. But then it tells us, we need to continue to go on and do more work. And, for me, it really is about the work. Faith without works is dead is just not this trite kind of phrase. It's a phrase that is, the amount of work that I'm willing to do is going to lead to the amount of progress I'm going to have, right, in my spiritual well-being. I am only going to be willing to grow spiritually as much as I'm willing to be uncomfortable, right? In the changes that I need to make in order to be the best person I can be, the person that God intended me to be, right? So, the fourth and fifth step got me to see the different sort of the stuff that I thought I needed to be in order to, the ideas of what I thought I needed to be or what I thought you needed me to be. And in the fourth and fifth step, and the fifth step, I really began to strip away some of that stuff to see the truth. That I'm okay just the way that I am. And then I have to go back and continue to work on cleaning that channel to my higher power so I can continue to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And that's through, my amends. I get to that place where I had a list now, right? And, my sponsor didn't have me sort of go back to my fourth step and pick out, all the people, and institutions and groups that I needed to make amends to. He basically said, pray on it, and the names will come to you. And I pretty much knew, I knew. And I broke them down into three categories. It was, family and personal friendships. It was financial, professional, and personal, family. I forget. There were three categories: family, personal, professional, financial amends. So those are the three categories, and I had to, organize my amends in those three columns. And he never said to put down, ready, willing, and never. Because basically what he said to me up front was, you're willing to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. And at some point, you will be ready to make those amends. And I didn't understand that because there were certain amends that I thought I would never be able to make. The beautiful thing about this work is that as you begin to make some of the lesser amends, I don't think that's a great word, lesser, but the easier amends, I think we begin to grow in confidence, right? In our ability and in our humility to continue on in this work. So some of those amends that I thought were going to be excruciating and difficult weren't so difficult later on to make. And I've been so far removed from that actual part of the mechanics of the steps because today I live my amends. All the amends that I could make are done. So I grabbed my list, right? I'm thinking, God, did I really do all that work? It's been so long, right? So I pull up my book and I look and I'm like, wow. I was amazed at how much work I had actually done, how much that I had actually accomplished, in completing all of that stuff. But today, what I understand, and again, for people who haven't gotten to this place of, making amends yet, don't worry about it. But for me, I'm at a very different place in my life, in my recovery, where I live my amends. And it tells us in here that, I wrote the quote down because it was perfect. It says that we need to grow in humility. Humility is the core of this work. Bondage of self is connected to lack of humility. Fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and to our but faith grows in the action. No faith grows without action. So basically, that's what I do today is I live my amends. So I get up every day and I ask God to guide me through the day and to really help me to make Him proud, is what I say. And I'm going to give you some examples of some of the amends that I made and then how I live my amends today. And so when I made my list and I started going out to the world, I made some easier amends to people actually in the program. We used to drive up to Leominster. Denise remembers this. We used to go up and, we used to drive up with a bunch of people. And of course, I would still be drinking and I'd still be under the influence. And I made amends to people for actually being actively under the influence while we were going to meetings. And so those are some of the more easier amends. You're making amends to people in the program, right?
Yeah.
And then, some of the more difficult amends were the ones that, I never forget, I had my psychiatrist and my primary care doctor both prescribing medications to me at the same time, and they were, controlled substances, and they found out about it. So I had to actually make amends to them, and the psychiatrist that I was seeing actually had confronted me, and I sent him a scathing letter, and I refused to pay him, and so later on I had to call him up, and I had to tell him that I needed to make amends for my behavior, and certainly to pay him for the session that I blew him off with. And he said, I don't really know what that was. That was years ago. I don't know what it was. He said, I'll go back and check what my fees were at that point. And he did. And he got back to me and he let me know what I owed him. And I sent him the check and I paid him off. And that was one amend. And my PCP, I did the same thing too. I sat down and I had a conversation about my behavior. He was very understanding. some of the more difficult amends were, I had I still do a very, very dear friend today that I've known for 36 years. And she knew me pre-addiction, active addiction. And I say that because I believe I always had an alcoholic mind. I didn't get into the active use of chemicals until I was older. And she said to me, when I made my amend to her, she said, I never thought you were going to make it back. That's powerful. Because I understand today that even though I knew I was ill and I was sick, I didn't realize how sick I really was, because the people around us are seeing us, right, in our active disease. And I'm like a walking brain injury. I don't have a clue how ill I really am, right? I have no clue, And the further I get away from the active part of this disease, the more my stomach kind of flips when I think about how close to death I probably was on many occasions, How easily I could have overdosed or fallen down a flight of stairs, or gone out shoveling, which is what I did prior to going into treatment again almost 6 years ago, and drinking, shoveling, falling down, badly spraining my ankle and thinking if I had hit my head, nobody would have been around and I would have died because I would have been hypothermic, right? So you think about this stuff now. I'm like, this is by the grace of God. This stuff gives me goose pimples because I'm sitting here today alive, right? That isn't a miracle. And I don't ever want to take that for granted. And, and some of the other amends that I made my sisters, I always talk about this one because this is, my poor family. I put them through hell. And I remember my two sisters had really had it with me. And, these are people who, like, at Thanksgiving, they were like, we're not doing Thanksgiving dinner with you. We're going to go to our respective other families, and you're on your own, right? Because they couldn't do it anymore, right? And today I'm like such a big part of that. I have the most incredible relationship with my sisters, and that I've ever had in my life, and that's partly because of this work, mostly because of this work and living my amends, but also, for me. When my sister was living in England, my sister Noreen, she had a special needs child, and she just had given birth through a cesarean section, overseas. My father had just died. She couldn't get back. My mother was. I was just out of my mind, and I was ranting and raving and calling her, and I had to make amends for that behavior. Right, it wasn't good, and so I sat down and I made my amends, and then I said that. Is there anything else? That's the the caveat. Is there anything else? And she said, yeah, there is. And she went on, and she gave me a litany of, and I didn't remember a lot of it, which is really kind of frightening. And then when we finished, she said, okay. And she said, and when you do Nancy, my other sister, she'll have more. And she did. She had more, As difficult as that was for me, and in spite of the relapses since then, the relationship has changed because the motivation and the desire to be well. I changed, and I think that's a message I want people to understand, is that perseverance is a spiritual principle. Don't give up. You just got to keep going. You got to keep on and keep wanting to be well, and it really is about the work. It's not an excuse to relapse, trust me. I'm not giving anybody permission to do that, but you need to do what you got to do to get to that place where you understand to the core of your being, you got this, and it's not going away, and it's not just about the drink or the drug. It's about your soul, and how you live your life and conduct yourself in the world, right? And where I fell down over and over again was in step 10. Because fear for me is big. I'm afraid of what people are going to think about me. It's the pride that gets in the way. And my pride leads me to become dishonest. And when I'm dishonest and I'm not talking about it, then this is what happens, I'm not talking about other things. And then I'm driving down the street and I see the liquor store, and I'm not talking about that either. And it tells us, alcohol is a subtle foe. It's very subtle, it's quiet, it waits, right? And if I'm not spiritually fit, I'm in a tough place. So it really is about keeping myself well. And doing an 8th and 9th step is about continuing to grow in humility. And today I live my amends. I can tell you, I had a dear friend that I went to graduate school with. Knew her for years. She never drank. She never smoked. She jogged every day. She lived in a farm. She was in Barrie. Called me up one day and said, I've got some hard news. I've got acute leukemia. She was like 60 years old. Now, I would have never thought of anybody, she would have gotten sick with something. Here I am, a drinker and a drugger, and I've been in recovery, and 9 months later she was dead. But during those 9 months, I was in contact with her almost every day. If not by phone, by texting. So I was able to live that amends by because when I made my amends to her, I had pulled away completely because I was embarrassed. And my marriage had just broken up. I was afraid of telling her the truth. And when I told her the truth, and I opened that sort of channel back up again, I was able to be available to her. It wasn't about me anymore. And I think that's what this work is about. It's not thinking about myself, right? It's about thinking about other people. And so I was able to do that. And the dear friend that told me that she never thought I was going to make it back had to put her disabled sister in a nursing home, and she ultimately died. And so I was available regularly to her, and be able to sort of be present in those situations. It's really a gift today, right? This is what this has all happened in the last 4 years. Okay, so this is the stuff that we were able to do. And we continue to be of maximum service to God and to our fellows. We fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and our fellows. When I first came around, I thought it said that we made ourselves. But it doesn't say that we fit ourselves. We have to make an effort to do it, right? It's a conscious, deliberate decision to make ourselves useful to other people. And that's not always an easy thing, because I'm selfish. I'm an alcoholic. I want to be comfortable. And sometimes being in a situation with somebody who's struggling is uncomfortable, and I don't like it. So just to give you a more recent one, this is an interesting thing. So, you don't realize the damage you've done, and then the difference in what's going on. Like, I don't even think about my behavior anymore in terms of the stuff that I do that might be helpful or beneficial. It's become a natural part of who I am today. So my mother comes over. I text her in the morning, and I talk to her every night, because there were times when I stole her peace of mind and she didn't hear from me for days. And so she comes over every Thursday night. We have dinner together. And this past Thursday she came over, and we had dinner, and she said, I said, "Do you want a cup of tea, Mom, or a cup of decaf coffee with dessert?" And she said, No. "I'll have a cup of hot cocoa. Do you have any hot cocoa?" And I said, "No, I don't, but I can make you some." She said, "Oh, don't go to." I said, "No, don't worry about it." So I got the cocoa, and I made it from scratch and made it up, and I gave it to her. And she said to me, last night we were talking, and she said, I just got to let you know, Joe, I just think you are the most thoughtful, kind person that I know. Because this is amazing, because this is a person that I'm truly, just destroyed sometimes with my behavior. And she said to me, you just that little thing that you went out of your way to make me hot cocoa. She said, she's getting older too, so she's getting very sentimental. But she said, these are the things that like, oh my God, what a thoughtful thing to do. And I would have never known that. I just did it because I did it. I had no ulterior motive, right? And she said, coming home from Maine last week, she said, I just want you to know that we were driving up in my brother-in-law's car, and it's uncomfortable, and I was in the back seat, and I'm just, Mom, are you okay? Do you need to shift? Do you want me to change spots with you? She goes, when you said that last week, she said, it's just wow, my son really cares about me. I'm like, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? This is the change. These are the things that make the difference, right? This is why I did this work. Not really, I had no clue. I did it because I was sick of suffering. But these are the benefits of doing this work, right? So, if you're thinking about this work, don't think about it. Just do it, because I'm telling you, the benefits are tremendous, and that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.